Welcome to Inside Coverage, the how and why of all things in the NFL. He's Frank Schwab. I'm Jason Fitz. Now, if you've listened to the show at all, you know we are like a four-man tag team from the 80s wrestling reference. And our tag team also includes Jory and C-Rob. They are on their training camp tour. So we're going to have to do all the battling by ourselves, Frank. It's just the two of us taking on the world. I feel ready for this. I feel boldened for this. But I will remind everybody, keep up with Yahoo Sports because Jory and C-Rob are doing some great writing out at camp. I don't envy that, though. Like, every time I see them picture, any picture they post, Frank, they look a little sweaty, a little hot. Looks like things are already, we're days in. It looks like they're already starting to wear down. I can feel the sass coming from C-Rob through all posts and all writing. It's going to get hot for him.
It will. By the way, I don't, that's cool and all. But what I really want to say is, now that you talk about four-man tag team, I like that so much better than the boy band analogy. Can we be the Four Horsemen? Like, you'd probably be Ric Flair.
Ooh, do I get to be Ric Flair?
Art Anderson. Like, one of them could be Tully Blanchard. Whoever the fourth. There was always that rotating fourth. There was like Lex Luger, Barry Windham, and Ole Anderson, and whatever. And I don't know who C-Rob would be, but we'll give him we'll make Jory Tully Blanchard, and she would have no idea who that is, and she would probably look at me silly for even knowing who that man is.
I mean, C-Rob's going to freak about not being Ric Flair, though, right? Like, but let's be real. There can only be one. Can I tell you my Ric Flair story? So,
oh my God, you got a Ric Flair story? Please.
Yeah, I got a Ric Flair story. So I'm out on game day at ESPN, and I traveled for a year and did a digital show with Maria Taylor and David Pollack. And so every week we would do a show before game day. And so Ric Flair was the guest one week. And so he walks up to Pollack and Maria, and he had gotten out of the hospital and had been very sick. And when he was in the hospital, he watched game day every Saturday. It was very special to him. So he walked up to each of them in the full regalia, and me, because he just didn't know me. Like, I was brand new at ESPN. So he walks up and just walks past me, which is fine, and then hands these replica belts that are exact replicas of his championship belt. And he hands one to Pollack and one to Maria, both signed. And he's like, you guys got me through so much. I wanted to give this to you. And I'm looking at it as an 80s wrestling fan with such envy, right? And the minute Flair walks away, Pollack just looks at it and he's like, I don't want this. He turned around and just looked at some kid that was drunk in the front row. He's like, you want Ric Flair's belt? And just gave it to him. I was like, it was right there. Like, I didn't even I would have that framed. It would be up on the wall behind me. It would be like part of my life story. And instead, some drunk kid that didn't even know what game he was at got Ric Flair's belt. I got nothing.
I hope. I believe I've heard that story. I don't know if it was on the show or around a craps table in Vegas. Either way, I enjoyed hearing it again. I'll probably ask you to tell it again in a couple months. That is fantastic. Ric Flair is just, wow. Like a signed championship belt from Ric Flair. Yeah, that is.
Pollock just gave it away.
Why would you give that away? Yeah.
Now Pollock is in the new college football video game, and I'm not. I'm so mad at Pollock. Okay, by the way, it is almost preseason football time. And I was thinking of you because they said to everybody on social media, they clipped off our, let's say, light disagreement. But now, I mean, come on, the Hall of Fame game almost here. Are you maybe there's a little bit, but I will say now that we know that Bears starters won't play, which I don't think is a huge shock to anybody, it is a reminder. We're going to watch some disgusting football on Thursday, and we're still going to salivate over it.
Yeah, Tyson Bagent is going to be trending very, very quickly. Come on, I could be a curmudgeon about the preseason, but you have to agree with me that the Hall of Fame game is just not it, right? Come on, I got to get you on my side for that at least.
No, when I was a little kid,
oh my God,
I used to, my great aunt Eunice, this is story time with Jason Fitz. That's the name of this week's episode. My great aunt Eunice, the appropriate name for a great aunt, lived in Wall, South Dakota, home of Wall Drug, the original drugstore, the first place in America that gave out free water. So I'd spend 2 weeks in Wall, South Dakota as a little kid. And every year it aligned with this. And this is like when I'm 11 years old. It aligned with the Hall of Fame game. I would sit in the little living community she was in. I would sit in front of the TV and I would watch every second all the way back then of the Hall of Fame game because it meant there was football. I've had this sickness for football since I was a little kid. I love just the adrenaline of that night, that day, seeing the Hall of Fame and just knowing that, hey, the season is actually here. Yeah, Frank, I'm watching it. I might pop a little popcorn, might splurge on my diet a little bit. I don't know. I feel like the Hall of Fame game is going to be a little bit of celebration, a little celly going on.
I have the same relationship with the Hall of Fame game every year. If I'm not covering it, I'll watch it for, it's like, wow, football. And then 4 plays in, I'm like, okay, this is really bad football. None of these guys are going to matter to the season. Is there a baseball game on? What are the Brewers doing right now? I get there. So yeah, I'm not with you on the Hall of Fame game excitement. By the way, have you been to Canton? Have you been to the Hall of Fame?
I have not actually.
Really?
So
It is fantastic. It is A+. Anybody listening who is obviously if you're listening, you're a football fan or just maybe a fan of Jason Fitz. I don't know. Go to the Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. It is awesome. Cooperstown's better. Cooperstown is magical. Like I love football more than I love baseball, but the Baseball Hall of Fame is the best. It is absolutely the best. But a hardcore football fan, you got to make that pilgrimage at least once. It is a great time. It's a great museum. It's just everybody there is happy and excited and all the history of the game. They do a great job with that place. Yes, go to the Hall of Fame. Please go to the Hall of Fame sometime. Make it a priority for yourself to get there.
Touring now is so different than it was back when I was like in the heart, like 2012, 13, 14, when I was really grinding on the road. Uber was such a new and kind of expensive prospect in some ways. Like you couldn't really get anywhere. We once played like 25 minutes from the Hall of Fame, and 25 minutes when you're on the road is just far enough that you're like, nope, can't do that. So yeah, it's close as I've gotten. But I do want to make a trip over there sometime just to hit the Hall of Fame and then go back to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, do like the whole Cleveland, Canton, like Middle Ohio thing. Like I think that'd be fun.
Sure. Are there any Raiders going into Hall of Fame? And probably not. Maybe Devontae soon. Like going there because I went there when Elway and Barry Sanders were there. I was covering the Broncos at the time. The ceremony induction weekend is top of the line. Like that is, if you are a fan of, let's say, the Bears, and you could go see Devin Hester and Julius Peppers even get in this weekend. Like that is something you'll never, ever forget. Induction weekend is a really, really cool event.
Yeah, well, let's wait until my buddy Max Crosby gets in.
Yeah, Max might. Seriously, like that. He's got a shot. Like if Max goes in, like yeah, he does have a shot. He's on that. If he wins a Defensive Player of the Year award, and I think he will at some point, then it boosts him up a little bit, and I could see him. He's got to have a few more years, but he's a bit, he's at least laid a foundation.
He's at least started, like he's walking. He's not running there yet, but he's at least walking toward one player, probably not talking Hall of Fame yet, but talking at least Hall of Fame bank accounts. DJ Moore gets the extension Tuesday night, 4 years, $110 million, $82.6 million guaranteed. Largest contract in Bears franchise history. But I think this also, Frank, let's go back to the draft. Once you pressed restart on the clock with Caleb Williams, you got flexibility for the next 3 or 4 years. Yep. So it's a smart time to just start locking up people that you know are going to be part of the growth of Caleb moving forward. Like this is just one of those if this, then that moments for the Bears that I think makes a ton of sense.
Absolutely. It's smart for them. And I'll tell you what my reaction was to it is that I was like, oh my God, $110 million, 4 years. And then I thought for a second, I'm like, that's actually not bad. Like that's actually $27.5 million, if my math is right. That's all right for a receiver in these days. That just shows how the receiver market is just blown up. That DJ Moore gets $27.5 million, and I'm like, oh, team friendly deal, not bad. Like it just the receivers are getting paid now. Good for DJ Moore coming off a great season. I think he's going to thrive with Caleb. He's just a heck of a football player. They have 3 really, really good receivers in that room. Excited to see what they do. But DJ Moore, good for him. Good for the Bears. It's just a smart move all around. Yeah,
and every single time one of these are signed, you just look over at CeeDee Lamb and you're like, how are we feeling, CeeDee? Because I mean, the money on CeeDee is just going up and up. And every day he doesn't have a contract.
Why do these teams wait? Like, why does Jerry has done this over and over and over? Why wait? The price ain't going down. My favorite clip lately is the Fat Joe clip of yesterday's price is not today's price. Like that's CeeDee Lamb. He is saying, a few weeks ago it was 30 million maybe. Well, Justin Jefferson signed for 35. I want 35 now. Somebody's going to come along, maybe Jamar Chase, and sign for 37. And then CeeDee Lamb's going to go back to Jerry and say, yesterday's price is not today's price. And he's going to ask for 37. Why wait? You are not doing yourself any favors, Jerry. You know you're going to sign CeeDee at some point, and you're just making it more expensive for yourself.
You're not wrong. And by the way, if Fat Joe, if we're going to like,
this clip, right? Like I'm not. I'm not alone here.
No, I'm just thinking like my rap name, like am I fits? Am I skinny fits now? Like what about like instead of fat? Like I don't know. Yeah, like when you're fat, you can call yourself fat, and people find that really endearing. When you're skinny and you call yourself skinny, people find that to be a humble brag. I don't know what to do with that. Like Frank, I feel like average size. Like looks like he works out, but not works out enough. Fits. I don't know what. But it's not Frank. It's not Fat Joe. There's going to be some spicy NFC North takes coming up. By the way, that Frank will absolutely blow your mind with. But while we're talking quarterbacks and preseason, I do want to talk about one other important piece of news and notes from the preseason. That is that Aaron Rodgers, unlikely to play in the preseason at all. I saw you write about this on Yahoo, Frank, but it just feels like the Jets are in a bit of a damned if you do and damned if you don't situation, if you ask me.
I agree. Yeah, I totally like, I get it from both sides from Robert Saleh. And what I think is going to be really interesting, keep an eye on this. Robert Saleh basically came out and said, they asked him about it. And you could tell he was uncomfortable answering the question of, will he play in the third preseason game or will he play at all? And he said no for the first two. They said, what about the third? And he's like, well, my gut feeling is we'll see. And then he's like, actually, my gut feeling is no. I don't want him to play at all. Well, if Aaron Rodgers plays in that third preseason game, you kind of know it's another brick in the whole wall of Aaron Rodgers is just running the Jets now and he gets his way for everything. We'll see. I don't think he's going to play in that third preseason game. And there's two sides to this, and I get both sides. I get the Jets saying, why on earth are we risking a 40-year-old quarterback coming off an Achilles injury in a preseason game that doesn't matter? We lost him after 4 snaps last year. This doesn't make sense. On the other hand, do you really want his first snaps to be at San Francisco on Monday night of week 1? Like, that doesn't seem very smart. He has not thrown a pass in a game or completed a pass in a game that counts since January of 2023. Like, it has been a long time since Aaron Rodgers has really played meaningful football. But on the other hand, does a 4-time MVP really need the preseason? I don't know. I think you could go back and forth on this. I'm sure Robert Saleh and the Jets have gone back and forth on this. I'm sure Aaron Rodgers has given his input. I do think he's going to sit the preseason based on what we've heard. And yeah, they might start off a little bit slow, but I think it's just going to put the Jets' minds at ease to say, okay, we're going to get our quarterback at least to week 1. We're not going to lose him in the preseason. And I think ultimately that's probably the right call.
I mean, risk versus reward makes a lot of sense to me, but rust versus rest. I'm using all of the analogies now, but there is some element of, let's look at what we've seen, Frank. It took days. It took literally days of practice before videos everywhere of Aaron Rodgers yelling at his wide receivers about not being on the same page. And there's a little bit of an element of what did you expect? You weren't at OTAs, which you say don't matter, but now all of a sudden you're in practice and it feels contentious. And this comes back to the thing I keep saying on our shows together. The next time the Jets handle controversy well or chaos well will be the first time. So the fact that we're already seeing these things leak out, what happens on Monday night when they're taking on a great team with a great defense and a great coach that's going to come in and they're going to scheme the hell out of all of this? And then all of a sudden, you better hope that there's no rust and you better hope that there's no adverse effects and you better hope that he can take a hit and get back up. There are so many questions that are, I think, valid right now. And I know we just want to put everything in bubble wrap and say, okay, it's Aaron Rodgers. He's going to be fine. And the Jets are going to go to the Super Bowl. None of it's that simple for me. When you factor in the age and the time off and the injuries coming off of, and the fact that it's the Jets and how obsessed we already are with practice issues, man, I think that they are opening Pandora's box. I know why they're not playing him. I understand it. But let's be real. If he comes out and has a bad week 1, everyone is going to freak out.
Everyone will. Can you imagine him and Garrett Wilson have a miscommunication and Garrett goes one way, Aaron throws the other, and it's a pick 6 or something like that. The clip would be replayed 88 million times, including the clip of Aaron Rodgers yelling at Garrett Wilson and Garrett Wilson yelling back. We can already see it. You can see it in your head as I talk about this. And that's just the Jets. That's going to be the 2024 Jets. They realize everything's going to be blown out of proportion, almost to Cowboys levels. We'll see. I like the Jets going into that game. I actually did. I thought they could kind of maybe surprise the 49ers, whatever. But when you stop and think about the fact that their quarterback hasn't played, other than 4 snaps, a meaningful game, and as long as he has, and with this franchise he never has, it's going to be hard for the Jets to win that game. It just is. It's going to be really hard with no preseason and no last season to come out and win at the defending NFC champions.
There's also an element of one standard. We look all the time at Deshaun Watson right now, and we say, well, I wonder how much impact it had that he was away for the game for a minute and it takes a minute to knock off the rust. And we try and have these reasonable conversations about just the play on the field for some guys as maybe a justification of why they aren't great. But then when we see other players coming off of injury, we never want to allow for that same forgiveness before it starts. I've said, how many times have I said Anthony Richardson missed so much of last season? I think it's fair to look at a team like the Colts and say, I don't know, man. I think AR has a chance to be great, but we got to see more, and he's got to knock the rust off. I think Kirk Cousins can be great, but he's also 87 years old and coming off an Achilles, and that makes me nervous. We all know Aaron Rodgers can be great, but he's also 932 years old coming off an Achilles. Like, I think it's okay to sit back and say, hey, guys, what we need to, and fans freak out about everything. Like, if you don't pick the Jets to go to the Super Bowl, then you must be an idiot and you don't understand the team and you've never watched them. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. Well, what about a little bit of nuance in the expectation setting, simply to look at it and say, look, if Aaron Rodgers is great, yeah, the Jets are a Super Bowl contender. If it takes them 6 or 8 weeks to knock off the rust, they're going to be far enough behind the rest of a tough AFC that it's an uphill battle for them. And I don't think that that's spreading hate to anybody. That's just being reasonable in the analysis with some level of nuance.
Yeah, and I keep talking about this on this show, other shows, writing about it, thinking about it. The fact that they're in the first, I believe, I need to get this correct. The first 7 games of the season, they play a standalone game 6 times, meaning either primetime or London, a game that every single NFL fan is going to be watching. It just puts such a microscope on them. And if Aaron Rodgers starts slow, the entire narrative of the NFL is going to be, this gamble isn't working. Aaron Rodgers is washed. The Jets are screwed. Like, it's going to be an overreaction, not just because it's the Jets, not just because it's Aaron Rodgers, but they are going to be in a standalone spot pretty much every single week to start the season. And if they start slow, like, it's going to get bad quickly just because of the situation they're in. This isn't the Cleveland Browns, like, where they can kind of hide back in anonymity a little bit. Like, no NFL team's anonymous, but there's a difference between the media market in Cleveland and the media market in New York. And there's going to be a freak out if Aaron Rodgers is rusty early in the season. You make good points. Like, we don't know. Like, this is such an unknown. If you could give me the answer, like one answer off of the test by the end of the year, how Aaron Rodgers plays, maybe even his stat line, you could figure out a lot of things for the rest of the season, because that is maybe the biggest variable we have going into the NFL season is, how is Aaron Rodgers going to be? He's not only coming off an Achilles with a new team that he's really never played for. He's 40. He's going to be 41 in December. If he's great, though, there's a possibility Aaron Rodgers is great. Like, we both have to account for that too. If he's great, the Jets are going to the moon. Like, where is it? Is he going to be MVP-ish level? I don't think he's ever going to win another MVP, but is he going to be at that level? He's won 4 of them. Or is he going to look like an old man coming off an Achilles injury? We just really don't know. Yeah,
and that's allowed. That's the one thing that I will say so loud right now as we go into the season. It's allowed, and I think it's the toughest thing that we do in sports talk, whether we're on podcast or radio or digital, it doesn't matter. The toughest thing is that we are asked to write a book report after every chapter of a book. So after 1 week, we have to make these sweeping generalizations about where a team or a player is. Well, that'd be like after 1 chapter of a book. It's the best book I've ever read. Well, the next chapter might suck. And then you got to step back and you've got to reanalyze what you think of the book after 2 chapters and 3 chapters and 4 chapters. That's what we have to do when you talk about football.
Fitz. Jordan Love.
100%.
Me and Joe, my NFL editor, Joey Galino, we were talking about that this week, and just how go back. You can go back and listen to us after that, especially the Raiders game, talking about Jordan Love. We saw like fools, right? But in that moment, we were right. Like, Jordan Love was not good. He wasn't good in that game. He had a 73 rating or something after 8 games or whatever it was. Yes, it's impossible to know everything, and that's
the information changes.
Embrace that. Like, it changes completely.
The body of work, like, a team can look like trash to smart people that have spent their whole life around the game. A team can look like trash, and then in a few weeks, you're like, nope, they got it figured out. So I just think right now it's a real important reminder to everybody that listens to any football content that the hot takes on your team are based on the best information you have right now, and that information is going to change. And Aaron Rodgers is a perfect example of that. If it comes out cold, the one question is, will the Jets be patient enough as an organization if everything starts slowly to let it work itself out? That's the thing I don't know. Are they just suddenly going to start firing coaches? Is everybody going to go into a tizzy? Because it is. That's the biggest difference. When we talk about media market, I think the biggest difference is not the pressure the players feel day in and day out. I don't think being in New York changes the way a player plays on Sunday. What does change is that the organization constantly hears about it. And when your team sucks, then there's an impulse to want to make great sweeping change right away because everybody's yelling about it, as opposed to being in a market like Indianapolis or a market like Tennessee, where you can be bad for a prolonged amount of time. And frankly, it's like, yeah, we understand it. We get it. There's a little bit of media presence, but it's just not the same.
No, not the same. And nationally too. I mean, let's say this is perfectly reasonable to think this might happen. Let's say the Jets lose 28-3 on opening night. Like, I don't think that's going to happen, but we don't know. Like, the 49ers are a great, great team, and they could blow them out like that. We can already, I could do a show right now based on that, because we all know what the talking points would be. People would be killing the Jets. People, like you said, every chapter of book report, and we would be. I mean,
isn't that what we do? Like,
they're totally dead. Yeah, it's crazy. That's how the NFL's covered, though.
You and I will, and for everyone that doesn't know, if you didn't listen last season, Frank and I do a show Sunday nights, and it goes out late Sunday night, early Monday morning, and we literally react to every single game on Sunday. I love doing that with Frank. It's one of my favorite things I've ever been a part of. It'll be on the Inside Coverage pod feed, by the way. You can just get it there. But Frank, realistically, we're asked to immediately react to every single game. So if week one, the Raiders beat the Chargers 73-0. I'm just manifesting that. Then our week one reaction, our week one reaction is going to be immediately, maybe we were underrating this, and maybe we were overrating Harbaugh. And all of those things can be true. And if 3 weeks later it looks totally different, that answer is going to be true too. That's the beauty of it and the heartbreak of it all at once. Okay,
that's why we love it. That's why we love this game, because every fan is so invested in every single week now, and there's no patience. Again, to bring up the Brewers, if the Brewers lose today, I'm going to be upset for the rest of the afternoon, but I'm like, it's one of 162. I'll be fine. Where every football fan freaks out every week, good or bad. And sometimes these things we think we're freaking out about actually come true. CJ Stroud early in the season last year, if you didn't freak out about him, by the end of the year, you're like, oh, I missed the boat on that. It's great. That's why the NFL is beautiful. That's why the NFL has a perfect product, because every week is a playoff game, and playoff games are like the end of the world, and the Super Bowl is the biggest event on earth. It's just, everything's bigger in the NFL.
Well, quarterbacks particularly are bigger. So when we come back, we're going to take a look at some teams that have quarterbacks that we're just trying to figure out where our confidence is, and we'll do it with a unique meter you can only find here. That's coming up. Frank, confidence meter. That's the basic gist of what we're about to do. But I thought, instead of just doing it's so arbitrary to do like stars or rankings, I usually do like shelf of vodka type thing. We're all over the place with confidence meter. But I thought we could take a look at some teams here, and we'll look at the confidence meter, and we're going to come up with 3 identifiers. We're going to call one the Mahomes, which means hey, I got my guy. I'm rock solid. I don't really care what you think. I got my guy, right? It doesn't have to be as good as Mahomes. That's the meter of it. You got that guy, 100% you're good. Then we're going to go to the Dak. That's the next line down. Dak is you know what? He's really good. I'm happy. I'm happy. If you're happy, everybody's happy. And then we're going to go to the Nathan Peterman, which is 5 picks in the first half, and what the hell happened to our lives. Okay, so you got Mahomes, Dak, Peterman. Those are the scales that we're using.
For Dak. We should have a Derek Carr tier.
Okay, I like that. Let's throw in Derek Carr. We're going to throw in Derek Carr.
We really don't feel good about this, but we're not Nathan Peterman level, but we know we need an upgrade. So I think we need a little.
We'll call Derek Carr better than nothing. But Derek Carr's you know what? We're not totally screwed. We got Derek Carr. All right. So all right. So we got Mahomes, we got Dak, we got Carr, we got Peterman. I love that we went Peterman at the end of this. Also, I love that Carr and Peterman have both played for the Raiders.
Just catching strays. Nathan Peterman's done nothing wrong to anybody.
You obviously didn't watch enough of his film. He's done plenty wrong to fans. Okay. Let's start with you want to start with the tough one? I'm going to give you a tough one out of the gate, because I'm going to ask you. Now, here's the thing. When we're talking about quarterback situation, I'm going to say 49ers. But remember, I'm going to say 49ers, specifically talking about the fact that not only do they have Brock, but they got big money coming into Brock. So now, Frank, I'm making you, John Lynch, you are the GM of the 49ers. And I'm sitting across from you as Brock's agent, and I slide that little piece of paper over with you that's got a number on it, and you got to decide how confident you are, because that number could start with the 6, right? So I'm talking about paying Brock, and so now you got to tell me your confidence meter. Mahomes, Dak, Carr, Peterman.
If we're taking the contract out of the situation, I'd actually say he's on the Mahomes level. Not as a player, but the 49ers know he can run the offense perfectly. He had 113 rating last year. It was, I think, the 14th best of all time. He is perfect for that system. And all this debate about, is he really good, or is it just, it doesn't matter. He runs that offense perfectly. But I'll say this, and I get it's not going to happen. I would not pay Brock Purdy. And that's nothing against Brock Purdy. But I would say, look, what makes our team great is our depth and our coach. And Kyle Shanahan can take another third, fourth round pick and turn him into the next Brock Purdy. He made Nick Mullins look like a reasonable quarterback for a while. Like Kyle Shanahan is proven. He elevates guys. He is that dude. You cannot build the type of team around the quarterback position if you're paying Brock Purdy $55 to $60 million a year. And that's, if you're Brock Purdy, why don't you ask for that? You're saying, hey, Trevor Lawrence got $55 million. Here's my numbers. Here's his numbers. Let's do this, because there's no reason. Or Jordan Love. It'd be like Jordan Love played good for 10 games. Like I've done better than Jordan Love in more than 10 games. I've taken my team to a Super Bowl. So I don't see why he settles for less. Like there's some, I guess, like if you're like, he's going to take some hometown discount. Well, why would he do that? He's been playing basically for minimum wage his entire career. So if I'm the 49ers, I say the biggest cheat code in sports, and we all agree to this, is a rookie quarterback, a good rookie quarterback on his rookie contract. Nobody has put this into action. Nobody has said, you know what? We're not going to pay $60 million a year for our quarterback. We're going to pay $2 million a year for our quarterback. The market's out of whack. We know that we can't build a championship team around a quarterback, paying a quarterback that much money if he's not absolutely one of those few 5 guys on the planet who just could carry a franchise no matter who's around him. We don't think Brock Purdy is one of those guys, but we do think our coach is one of those guys. And just to prove to everybody, the coaches don't have a salary cap. We're going to give Kyle Shanahan 10 years, $200 million. We're going to prove he has all of the job security in the world. We're not firing him if they go 4-13, if this thing turns out badly. But we're going to trade Brock Purdy. We're going to move in. We're going to maybe draft 2 quarterbacks in the middle rounds. One of them is going to hit. Nobody has actioned this. Nobody. The 49ers could. They're not going to. They're just going to pay Purdy. I get that. But the 49ers are kind of the team that could do this. I'll finish my rant by just saying, with the contract situation, I kind of view this as maybe not even Dak. Like, I just don't think the 49ers can build a championship team paying Brock Purdy $55 to $60 million a year. I just don't see that being a feasible outcome.
You, my good friend, are so wrong in so many ways on this. You are right about one thing. Brock Purdy is not going to take a hometown discount in my mind, only because I just looked it up. His career earnings through 2024 is $1.9 million. Career earnings. This year, he's going to make just under $1 million. Yeah. So he's going to get to the spot where in his career by the end of this season, he's made a total of about $3 million. That's not the guy that's like desperate to take a discount on a contract. Now, to me, instead of looking at the actual number, we got to look at the number above what the number should be before we really freak out. So let's say Brock comes in and they decide they want to pay him $55 million a year. Would people be more comfortable with 45? Yes. I think if you told the average fan that Brock got 45 a year or 40 a year, the average fan would say, okay, that's fair. He's taking a team discount. So I'm not looking at the number as 55, if that's what he gets. I'm looking at the number in that situation as 15. You overpaid your quarterback by $15 million. How big a deal in the modern salary cap era is $15 million? It's okay. Like, to me,
let me ask you. I'm going to ask you this. I want to frame it this way. Let's say the 49ers just said, we're done with you, Brock Purdy. You're a free agent. Okay. And your Las Vegas Raiders came and said, wow, Brock Purdy's available. We're going to give him $240 million over the next 4 years. Would you be excited about that?
No, I'd throw up in my mouth a little bit, but I also don't think.
That's what I'm talking about.
I don't have the coach to make the most of it. Why is it different for the 49ers?
Well, the coach, that's what the coach and the infrastructure is what you're investing in. It's not the quarterback.
If the coach could have made any quarterback successful, would he not have made Trey Lance successful, given the fact that there'd be way less egg on the face of the organization if they made their first round picks the successful quarterback? They wouldn't have traded Jimmy G. Like, I've seen what Jimmy G looks like when he doesn't have Kyle Shanahan. Yes, Kyle Shanahan is a whisperer. I don't take anything away from that, but you still got to be whispering into the ear of somebody that can execute it at a high level. So even if this is, we'll go back to our 80s tag team wrestling analogies. Even if this is the Rockers, right? And like one person is Marty Jannetty and barely belongs, and the other person is Shawn Michaels and is like an absolute superstar. Like Shawn Michaels is Kyle Shanahan, and in this position, Brock Purdy is Marty Jannetty, and nobody really remembers where Marty Jannetty ended up. But right now, together, they make a dynamic tag team that can win a lot of matches. So I think you pay a little bit more because you got the guy that hears the guy and can execute what the guy that is the guy wants.
I get that. By the way, Marty Jannetty, Dark Side of the Ring episode, he is bananas. Absolutely awesome. Go watch that. Anybody out there. Dark Side of the Ring is amazing, by the way. And I just have to bring up Marty Jannetty getting kicked through the window of the barbershop. Like that was one of the iconic.
I have a t-shirt of that.
Like, you have a t-shirt of that? Oh my God.
Yeah, I have a t-shirt. Like Homage made a t-shirt. I bought it immediately. I actually was late to a production meeting at ESPN once because Marty Jannetty was doing a meet and greet at a toy store. And I was like, I'm sorry, I'm going to go meet Marty Jannetty. It was every bit as problematic as you think it would be, but it was still, it was amazing to stand there and be like, I watched you as a kid. Yeah.
By the way, producer John is throwing up in his mouth right now at how long we're going here. But I will say that
John's like, stop with the 80s wrestling.
Goodness, can we not? We just need to do a podcast on
You're welcome,
the British Bulldogs and the Rock and Roll Express someday. But anyway, 49ers, I wouldn't pay Brock Purdy, but I know that's not realistic. So he's going to get paid. And once he gets paid, it's not Mahomes. It might not even be Dak, but I guess I got to put him in there because he just played so well. He runs his offense incredibly efficiently.
I'm giving his confidence meter rating because this is like Tony Reali. I can just make things up. I'm making him a Mac. It's a little bit of Mahomes, a little bit of Dak once he gets paid. For me, I think it's rock solid. I think the organization is doing the right thing. It's a smart thing, so I go Mahomes. Let's go to another one that I'm particularly eager on. Let's go to the quarterback situation of the Steelers. How would you remember? We got Mahomes, Dak, Carr, Peterman here.
I think it's almost Peterman level, just because I wish that there would have been some positive buzz about Justin Fields by now. I like Justin Fields. I like the idea of Justin Fields. I get all of the negatives. I get that he holds the ball too long. He takes too many sacks. He doesn't really read that well. He relies too heavily on his running game. I get all that, but we've seen him play well in flashes as a dual threat, as a passer too. But there's just been no positivity about Justin Fields. I know Russell Wilson's not the answer. For this season, it's a Derek Carr. It's all right. We're fine. We're going to have a functional offense. We're not going to be an embarrassment. But what beyond this year? What is your confidence level that they've got this thing figured out beyond the season? And it's not very high for me.
Yeah, my confidence level here would be about the same if it was Seinfeld's Peterman starting at quarterback. Like, I have no confidence in the Steelers quarterback situation, and Steelers fans rip me every time I say it, but I've made it clear I think Russ is cooked. But I also think you make a really strong and important point that needs to be reminded. What's the best case scenario if you start Russ? He balls out? You're going to give him $40, $50 million a year?
Yeah, like, I'll give you a hometown discount, guys. I'm 37 years old. I only want $42 million a year. Like, that's just, I don't know, man. I like Russ. I've enjoyed his career tremendously all the way back to when he was balling out for my alma mater in college. But I just don't, where does the story go from this season? Like, even your best case scenario is he plays really, really well. And then what? Like, you pay him 4 years, $160 million? Like, I don't know if that's really the road you want to go down.
Are there a lot of badger mushrooms? Are there a lot of those got a lot of former Wisconsin players out there in the NFL that you're rooting for?
There might be a few former Wisconsin players in the NFL. Have you heard of some of TJ Watt? Like, have you heard
no,
of
I just
guy?
meant that you're rooting for. Like, do you have like a
of
little
course
list
I root for
of
Wisconsin guys.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I root for Wisconsin guys all the time.
I never really thought about that.
Well. I love guys who represent the university well. Jonathan Taylor does so. So yeah, the guys who represent the university well. Yeah, of course. I'm Badger through and through, dude. Like that. There's
cool. Another conversation to be had at some point about how conference expansion is going to mean certain programs that are used to being occasionally competitive are now going to become irrelevant. And I may have Wisconsin on that list. So,
I wish I could argue with you on that, but you're probably right. Yeah.
Well, it's also an NFL podcast, and John's already tired of the WWE stuff. Let's go to the Colts.
I love that. I just want to troll John the rest of the show. Like, I just want to see him by the end, just harried. Yeah.
By the way, John Gennaro sitting in doing God's work. I usually give him a thanks at the end. We're giving him a thanks now because he's going to have to edit. If this episode sounds particularly choppy, it's just John cutting out all of the unnecessary BS that we, the fodder in the middle of it. Colts. So I'll say here, I put the Colts quarterback situation in. I think
this is tough. This is a tough one, dude.
Like, so look, it's not Mahomes for me. It's not rock solid. I can't give rock solid after 5 games. I just can't do it.
No.
So I guess it goes to Dak, but also like,
how could you? I don't think go Dak. We haven't seen this kid play. Like, I love the idea.
I'm a coward. You're right. I'm a coward. I'm a coward. Go ahead.
And I've talked about this a lot this offseason because I love this so much with Dalton Del Don, one of our fantasy guys who's really, really good and always has very out of the box takes, right? Like he's not scared. I respect the heck out of him for that. He said, Anthony Richardson is my quarterback one in fantasy this year. I get it. Fantasy's not reality. Let's skip over that. But it just proved the point that Anthony Richardson's ceiling is sky high. Like he could be the MVP this season. And I'd be like, okay, I didn't see it coming. I didn't bet on it, but sure, he's got that kind of skill. Or he could be a guy who's out of the league in 3 years. We have no idea where this thing is going. And the fact that he barely played in college and then he barely played as a rookie. What do you make of this? I don't know. I'm gonna take the very optimistic road here. I'll be a coward too. Just say I'll put him in the Dak category if he's good. I think that the Colts are going to view him as a plus quarterback by the end of the year. He's going to do some good things. But would it surprise me completely if he plays 6 games this year? Because he's just kind of one of those guys who's always hurt because of his playing style? No, any outcome. I think he is the quarterback with the biggest range of outcomes this year.
Yeah, I think he and Aaron Rodgers share that title for me. I'm with you.
Mm-hmm. There's probably a couple guys, but he's the one that really stands out.
I love what Shane did such great work last year with Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, he did.
I really want Shane and Anthony Richardson to have this moment. Shane, I keep calling him Shane like we're buddies. I want Steichen and Anthony Richardson to have this moment to bond together, to come together and rise together, because I like this dynamic duo, if you will. I like the potential of it a lot. I just think right now it's aggressive. Even if we were doing quarterback comps, if I told you that Anthony Richardson was going to grow up to be Dak Prescott, I think that's a home run. Like a constant MVP candidate quarterback. Really good. Like that's a home run. So I think Anthony Richardson, based on potential alone, like this is like a band that stops putting out records early. Like the worst thing a band can do is put out 3 or 4 records that suck, because then all of a sudden you have to reevaluate whether or not they're your favorite band. You're like, I really like these records, but I don't like the new stuff, right? Like Anthony Richardson has the glory right now of never having put out bad music at a high level. We've only seen 5 games.
Right.
So we turn around and we're like, oh, this is going to be great. Is it? I don't know. So like, could it turn into a Dak-like situation where he's absolutely a guy they bank on? Yes. Could it turn into Derek Carr? Like, I remember where I was the day that Derek Carr, I remember where I was sitting when he broke his leg and was having an MVP caliber season. And everybody was like, oh, Derek Carr is going to be the answer for the next 15 years. And now we're sitting around saying, is another team going to dump Derek Carr? Like, so I think if things go poorly, Anthony Richardson ends up being more in that confidence category than he does in the Dak category.
I want to, and I'm going to frame this not so we're doing this whole, like it's incomplete because he hasn't played. In 6 years, what category is he in? Make a statement.
I think he's in Dak's category in 6 years.
I did too.
I think
he's a little less than the top, but I think he's Cam Newton. And I know that's so lazy because of the Florida connection and they're similar build and rocket arm and all this stuff. But I think he's going to have Cam Newton's career, which is not bad. I love Cam Newton. He was one of my favorite quarterbacks of all time to watch. I think he's going to be Cam Newton.
I think he's going to win a lot of football. I love the Cam comp. He's going to win a lot of football games. The Colts are going to win a lot of football games. I am not going to put Anthony Richardson right now, in my mind, in 5 years in the same category as where Burrow is and Allen is and Mahomes is and Lamar is. Like, I think right now there are clear-cut 4, oh my God, cannot miss quarterbacks in the AFC. And once you get through those 4 names, and it's intentional that I didn't mention guys like Justin Herbert and Trevor Lawrence. Once you get past those 4 names, I think there's a moat. And then there's a whole nother class of quarterbacks that are all very, like, you can win a lot of games, going to be able to make the playoffs, might even be able to win a Super Bowl with them, but they are not going to be the bankable.
There yet?
Oh my God, Superstar. I got to see another year, Stroud. I got to get a second year. Like,
that's fair. That's fair. I don't know though. If I had to make a decision right now, I'd put
Stroud in the same conversation as Lamar, Burrow, Allen, and Mahomes after 1 year.
Yes. Yeah, I am. God. Like I'm putting him in that tier. I can't put him in the same tier. Patrick Mahomes almost needs another tier unto himself.
I agree with that. I'll put Mahomes
like
in
he's the GOAT.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody. Like I can't compare Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes. I just can't. Like I'm sorry, Joe Burrow's great. Patrick Mahomes might be the greatest. So I'm putting. Let's take Mahomes out of this situation. Would I compare Stroud to a Burrow? Even Lamar is tough because Lamar's going to the Hall of Fame someday.
2-time MVP.
But Stroud is so good, man. He's so good. He's so good.
All right. I love at this point, John is just sitting here saying, why didn't we even do a rundown? Why did we even do a rundown?
He's just ripping paper right now.
All right. So you mentioned Burrow. For me, I've said, and I think fairly, I think I'm being fair here, that injury prone is a fair label to assign to Joe Burrow. So for that reason, because we have seen Joe Burrow miss time, and when we start talking about confidence tiers, I think that Joe Burrow is a better quarterback than Dak, for example. But I cannot put him in the rock solid confidence tier of Mahomes until I know that he's just not going to battle injuries. Like I think injuries are a concern for me. Do I think I think Joe Burrow is the second best quarterback in the NFL. I will die on that hill. I think Joe Burrow has the chance to make the Bengals the second best team in the NFL. However, I am nervous year in and year out about, is Joe going to have some lingering thing that impacts his performance in any way, shape, or form? So I would love to put the confidence of Mahomes into it, but the injury part of it, if we're being fair, if the same injuries that occurred to Lamar, we would be trashing Lamar all the time. We do trash Lamar, and his injuries came in the pocket. They didn't even come running the football, and people aren't smart enough to recognize that. So, like, just to be honest for a second, if Joe Burrow was an athletic black quarterback that ran the football, we would just be destroying, he's can't pay him, can't trust him, because he plays more prototypically than that and looks more like a normal, prototypical quarterback, I should say. Then in that moment, I think it gets less grief.
Probably, but I think my go-to with this is always Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford's first 2-3 years in the NFL, he got that injury-prone label. Oh, is this guy going to be durable enough? And then he became an Iron Man, basically. He's had injuries here and there because he plays quarterback in the NFL, and that's going to happen. But I do think that sometimes you just get bad luck. Like,
I agree with that.
So I have Burrow easily in the Mahomes category here. I get the injury concerns, though. It's piling up. At some point, it's like, there's been the ACL, and then the calf last year really, really affected him in the first month and a half. And then the wrist injury, which we have no idea yet if he's going to bounce back fully from, which I think he will, but we don't know until you see it. I get it. I get where you're coming from. But to me, it's just, he's so good. I have no concerns about him going forward, and you just hope for better luck on the injury front.
I don't disagree with that. If he's healthy, then absolutely he belongs in that same category. Where are you on the Vikings this year with their quarterback situation?
Probably in the Derek Carr, better than nothing. Like I hate to slam Sam Darnold. He seems like a nice guy and all that. I always say, like, he's just not an NFL starting quarterback. So I don't even. Whatever. At some point, the Vikings are just going to say, we got to go to McCarthy. We can't keep doing this. And it's probably going to come when Addison's back from his suspension and Hawkinson's about ready to come back from his ACL. Give him full complement of players. Give him a chance to succeed. So we're talking, to me anyway, about J.J. McCarthy here. And I don't know necessarily that I have him in that Dak. I can't put him in that category of, hey, yeah, we feel pretty good about this. I'm not there with him yet. The volume at Michigan was so low that he played well. I get that. Obviously, they were a good team, but they were a really good team. I don't know that he necessarily carried them anywhere. So I still have questions about McCarthy. I think he's in a good spot. I think he's got a good coach to develop him, but I'm still not quite there. But I'm not like panicking either. I'm not like, oh God, JJ McCarthy's the next Christian Ponder. Like, I don't think that's going to happen. So I feel fine. Feel okay. Feel all right. Okay.
I like how he channeled his like a high me voice there.
Okay. I did. I really did. Yeah, it's rubbing off. Yeah.
Yeah, you're too generous. That's the only way to say this. I love the coach, right? I love Kevin O'Connell.
He's good.
And I love what he was able to do last year with quarterbacks that barely belong in the league. So I give him a ton of benefit of the doubt. But right now, if we were in Vegas and we were dabbling, right, we were going to put a little money, and there was a category for this where in 5 years, do you believe that the Vikings have they have someone on their current roster that will be a superstar quarterback? I wouldn't place that bet. JJ might. I mean, there's just, to your point, not enough volume of work. We have no idea what it really looks like. It feels like there was a lot of benefit of the doubt given in that situation. I just don't know. I don't know with JJ. And I know with Sam Darnold, I'm not scared. So I'm scared of the coach because I think the coach is great. But also, I didn't love what I thought was a reach at quarterback. We all knew it was going to happen at some point. But JJ might turn out to be great, but that was a huge gamble to me. So if I had to right now pick a category I think that the Vikings are in, it's kind of in the Nathan Peterman. Until I see something from JJ, like I can't give him any benefit of the doubt right now. Like, what the hell do we even know? Like, and it's funny because we sat there and as a community, a lot of people trashed CJ Stroud coming out of college because they felt like he didn't show enough athletic ability outside the pocket. And he addressed that when he was getting drafted at one point, saying, we spend hours on these plays practicing them, and you want me to run to show you something? Like, he answered those concerns, and people still held that against him. It's funny how these little seeds of doubt, they grow from out of nowhere. I at least can understand, hey, we saw in the playoffs that CJ addressed all of that. He was the athletic monster that we know he can be. And frankly, a much better quarterback in my mind than JJ is right now. So everything with JJ is speculative in my mind. So I just wonder why we don't have the same standard of curiosity when it comes to CJ Stroud versus JJ McCarthy. Yet again, it just feels like the goalposts move on this, and everyone's like, oh, no, JJ's going to be great. Okay, based on what? When's the last time you saw a great quarterback in college, like an absolute juggernaut, Hall of Fame caliber, top quarterback in the game, hand off every single play? And I know that was part of their strategy, and I get why they did it. Michigan fans beat me up for this all the time. I get why they did it. I'm sorry. If you had Peyton Manning in Tennessee back in the day, you didn't hand the ball off every play in the second half, even if that's what you needed to do. You just didn't do it. I believe Harbaugh's a smart coach. I believe that he found ways to get around some of the deficiencies, and I believe we're giving J.J. McCarthy a ton of benefit of the doubt. I hope he wins, but right now, if I had to bank on it, I wouldn't make that bet at all.
Interesting. And I think part of it is the whole quarterback wins illogical way we look at quarterbacks. Like Michigan won because they were a great football team. Like we got to remember football's a team game. We're like, J.J. McCarthy won a national title. No, Michigan won a national title. Like there's a difference. So I get where you're coming from there, but I'm a little higher and willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. And part of that is a coach. I just think the coach is going to develop him really, really well.
It's the only time in history Frank has ever said I'm a little higher than me, and he's been right. We're talking about football, only talking about football. Let's get one more in here. The Broncos, just had to make a generic edibles joke. The Broncos, I'll just be frank here with you, Frank. You see what I did there?
Hey.
This one's easy for me. I think the Broncos have the next Nathan Peterman at quarterback. I'm not scared of him at all. I don't think he's a great quarterback.
Not at all?
I don't think. Yeah, I'm giving nothing to this. Giving absolutely nothing to prove it. Prove me wrong. I know we all want to make the quarterback whisperer the smartest person in the room here. I think it was a reach of a draft pick. I think he's going to be okay, and I think he's going to settle into a role as a backup in the NFL within the next 3 years.
Wow, that is harsh. I'm a little higher just because of the Sean Payton factor. I just think, again, like, what's your environment? Well, you're working with Sean Payton. He's going to get the most out of you. He's a guy who can, I think, run an offense pretty well. I don't think he has like a MVP candidate type of upside in any way. Maybe we'll see. I don't know. Wouldn't have said Tom Brady did in 2000 either. But the one thing that's troubling to me is that, I'm here in Colorado, obviously, and the drumbeat from camp has been, this is a real position battle, that Jarrett Stidham's a little bit ahead of Bo Nix right now. That shouldn't be the case. One of the reasons you draft Bo Nix is because he's 24 years old. He has 61 career starts in the NCAA, and he should be ready to go. Like, that's one of the features of drafting Bo Nix. He's not a sit and wait guy. Like, if he sits and waits, he's 26 years old. Like, it's just not like part of the equation with Bo Nix. You draft him because this guy could be a week one starter. So I assume he's going to end up winning that job, but it's definitely clear that he's behind right now. Not by much, but it's a competition. If he's not their starter week one, I think you might be right. Like, I just think it's a red flag. If Jarrett Stidham is your starter week one over a guy who set the NCAA record with 61 career starts as 24 years old and was your first round pick, why even draft Bo Nix at that point? Like, he should be ready to go out of the box. Like, this shouldn't be a wait and see type of thing. So that worries me, but we'll see how that shakes out in August, obviously.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. And by the way, I would just implore anybody, because I covered a lot of Bo when I covering college football, go watch his home and away splits. Don't even just read the stats. Go watch on YouTube the way he plays at home versus the way he plays on the road. Until somebody can explain that to me, I will not give him any benefit of the doubt in the NFL, because last time I checked, they still play road games in the NFL. All right, so one game we all have on our horizon. It's never too early for wild Super Bowl predictions. When we come back, Frank Schwab is going to give you the hottest take he's ever given in the history of all mankind. You don't want to miss it. I'm just telling you, this is about to just mess up your whole day. Oh, we'll do that next. All right, we're going to bring in a new feature here. I think we're calling this Schwab Island. It's a little like Love Island, maybe. I don't know. Like, Frank's going to give us a take.
You like Love Island?
I mean, Love Island's good. Are you in on Love Island?
I watch every trash reality show, not always voluntarily, but I watch them. Yeah, I've seen them all. I can give you a review on many of them. The Bachelorette this season. Why is everybody crying all the time? Like, what? Can we just get through an hour of The Bachelorette without somebody weeping? Like, I don't get it.
I've never watched The Bachelor Bachelor or The Bachelorette.
No.
I'm a little lost on that one. But any other, like, we should do an Instagram live sometime after a trash TV show. We'll do a live reaction because, like, Love Island, I'm in on all the Bravo shows. Bravo, hit me up. I want to go on Watch What Happens Live someday. It's the best show on TV. Okay, so Schwab Island. It's a little like Love Island. You're going to be here. You're going to be looking for love. So you're going to throw out a take of yours, and then I'm either going to rip it apart or I'm going to join you, and we will walk hand in hand along the beach. So you've stated at least here once on Inside Coverage that you've got a shocking Super Bowl pick you are considering. As you are sitting on Schwab Island, you ready to tell the world?
I'm going to lock it in. I'm sold on this, and it's one of those things where I'd have FOMO if I didn't end up picking it, if I was just like, oh, Chiefs over 49ers, like, whatever. I will say this. I think this is important. I really do. Like, there's a serious moment right here, Fitz, that a lot of people out there that just give these crazy opinions, right? My opinions might be crazy, but I come by them honestly. As we talked about, I dabble. You dabble. If you think I'm like just throwing something out there, hot takey, just for clicks or watch the podcast or whatever, I can tell you I have a betting slip that backs this up. Like, I come by all this honestly. So when I say that my Super Bowl pick this year is going to be the Detroit Lions over the Cleveland Browns, I come by that honestly. It's 150-1 at BetMGM. Go check it out. I just think, let's start with the Lions. I finished my preview with them that I just published this week, saying they are my pick to win Super Bowl 59. I just think this Lions team is loaded. I think that they addressed the one weakness they had to address, and that was cornerback. This team gave up way too many big pass plays last year. We all saw it. They went out and got 4 cornerbacks. They were like, we know what we need to do. We're throwing numbers at this thing. We're going to get it better. And I think they got quality guys too. So I think the one weakness they really, really had, they shored that up. That rookie class from last year is going to get even better. The continuity on offense with Ben Johnson coming back is huge for me. I've already talked about Jared Goff MVP. I think he's going to be my pick for MVP. And I know that's kind of crazy too. Got slips to back that up. So I just think that everything about the Lions, including the fact that they got so close and fell short, I think that that's motivating them. I like to look at quotes coming out of there. And Amon-Ra St. Brown had a good one where he said, our goal this year is not the division. It's not the number 1 seed. There's only one place for us to go, and that's a Super Bowl. And we are all focused on this. And I believe that. I think Dan Campbell has this. He's a great motivator. I think he's going to have them focused on that goal. And I do think they get it done. The crazier one probably is the Cleveland Browns. But again, I've just talked about this so much that team went 11-6 last year with really, really bad quarterback play. They went 9-2 in games Joe Flacco or Deshaun Watson started. If you just get decent quarterback play out of Deshaun Watson, and I get nobody wants to root for Deshaun Watson. That's why their win total is down at 8.5 at BetMGM. That is not an 8-9 team. We all know that. We all know that Deshaun Watson is not so much worse to Joe Flacco that team's going to lose three more games than it did last year. Like, that's not an 8-9 team. Great defense, great skill position, great offensive line. They just need good quarterback play. And I honestly do think Deshaun Watson's going to be above average. He's not winning an MVP. Nobody would vote for him for MVP anyway, but he's not going to play at that level anymore, I don't think. But I think he'd be good enough. And I think this Browns team is going to surprise a lot of people. That roster is really, really good.
Look, I don't disagree that the Browns roster is good. I do disagree that Deshaun has anything left. Like, I'm just done.
That's fair.
Every year I walk into it thinking, you know what, it'll be fine this year. He's knocked the rust off, whatever. And then it just doesn't really happen. It just didn't look good. I know he had one game last year that we were like, oh, maybe. But for the most part, here's the thing. I don't actually hate your pick if I was looking at the season in a full 20-game scape, between the regular season and the playoffs. If I was looking at it a 20-game body of work, I like where you're coming from the Browns. Where I don't like where you're coming from the Browns is that Deshaun can get away with not being great, and they can win a lot of games in the regular season. I don't know that you can beat Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, or Patrick Mahomes if you don't play well. And in the playoffs, I wouldn't trust him at all. Like, I think it's fair to say that Josh Allen, for example, has struggled to find a way to get past the Chiefs. But Josh Allen has played really well in the majority of those games, right? Joe Burrow has obviously had huge moments in the playoffs. Mahomes is who Mahomes is. We need to see a little bit more from Lamar in the playoffs. I think that's probably a fair commentary right now, but we don't know. We have no idea what Deshaun actually looks like in the playoffs. So to me, I have a hard time getting past Deshaun, the quarterback, being able to win playoff games. The Lions pick wouldn't be my pick, but I see where you're coming from with it. it's the Brown side of it. Now, here's the real question. Do you think America would love a Lions versus Brown Super Bowl because it's so unprecedented, the hype for two teams that have never been there?
I think what would happen is all of America would root for the Detroit Lions. And I'm sorry, Cleveland Browns fans, your team did this to you. Like, Cleveland Browns fans, they should be the lovable losers, right? Like, they should be the team like the Lions who are all like, maybe the Browns can do this. If you don't have a team in the playoffs, you're rooting for the Browns, but they screwed that up, didn't they? They are a team that everybody's rooting against. Again, you did this to yourself. You made this bad. Cleveland Browns fans, you are on an island by yourself. I'm sorry to say that. Nobody's going to be rooting for you if you make a Super Bowl. Everybody will be rooting against you. And if it's the Detroit Lions you're facing, if this wild fantasy comes true, oh my goodness, it would be like all of America would be Detroit Lions fans at that point. And that stinks for Browns fans. I'm sorry. Good fans out there. I like Cleveland people. But yes, I think it would be a very, very interesting, fun Super Bowl. And I think just the fact that we could play villain and hero in this story, yeah, I think that would be one of the highest rated Super Bowls of all time.
I do think you're right that the world would gravitate towards the Lions on that. But here's the reality of it. The Super Bowl the world wants, the Super Bowl the networks want, the Super Bowl fans really want, even if they don't want to say it out loud. It's pretty clear. And I think it could happen this year. I think it's Cowboys and Chiefs. Like, look, I know the Cowboys never win in the playoffs, and we all sit there and say, I mean, Dak can't get that done. That's fine. But here's the thing. The numbers on Cowboys games are always out of their minds, right? Like when you look at how many people watch it, the world wants to either love or hate the Cowboys all the way into the Super Bowl. And the fact that the Chiefs have become who they are now, they are bankable as a product. Like, I think there's a very real chance. Again, I know that the Cowboys suck in the playoffs. We can all acknowledge that. But at some point, maybe that breaks through. I don't know. What I do know is that
people root for in that game, you think? Like, because nobody likes the Cowboys. We're taking, obviously, fan bases out of it. We're talking about your casual fan.
Casual fans going to root for the Cowboys to lose. Like, casual fans going to root for Mahomes.
Nobody's rooting for the Chiefs anymore. You've seen such, and I saw this happen with Brady, and it's happening to Mahomes now, and I hate that it's happening. And I kind of railed about it a little, real briefly on X, formerly Twitter today. Don't be that fan that's being like, oh, I hate the Chiefs, Mahomes, you guys are the refs all the time. Enjoy what it is, but that train ain't stopping, and people are going to start hating the Chiefs at the game. Nobody's rooting for the Chiefs to win again. Like, nobody. I mean,
Swifties are. Swifties. We're going to have Swifties versus Cowboys fans. I mean, and then you got Swifties versus Cowboys fans. Everybody's going to be all, unless, here's the complication. If Kelsey and Taylor Swift break up before the Super Bowl, then all the Swifties are going to be rooting for the Cowboys. They're going to be rooting for the Cowboys. That's what's going to happen. They're all going to root against their ex-boyfriend. That's inevitable.
Oh, my God. And then Taylor's going to, she's going to play halftime and play like a breakup song about Travis or something like that. Is that what's going to happen here?
I've seen a bunch of reports that Miley might play the halftime. Like, everybody keeps speculating Miley Cyrus could be. She'd be great. She'd be great. Like, really but I don't think Swifties necessarily love Miley because I think there's like a little bit of rivalry sometimes. So I don't know. Like, can you do that? What I do know is, go ahead.
So real quick, do you have a Super Bowl pick yet? Or because we're going to do a prediction show in a few weeks, and I can't wait for that, by the way. That's going to be really fun. Are you waiting on your Super Bowl pick, or are you locking it in?
I'll lock it in. I'll go Cowboys Chiefs. I'm going to lock it in.
Cowboys Chiefs? And who, with the Chiefs winning?
Yeah, the Chiefs are going to win their third straight
Chiefs
Super Bowl.
Over Cowboys.
Well, if you didn't beat them last year, you're not beating them. Like, you're just not beating them. Unless there's injuries.
That is the rub with all this. With all my, I'm going to be contrarian, and I'm going to pick the Browns win the AFC and the Lions win the Super Bowl. It's like, well, the Chiefs weren't great last year. They were good. They weren't great. They still won it all. Like, how I beat them this year when they're better.
I mean, I saw somebody on Twitter tweet both of us, or X, whatever we're calling it. They X'd us. And they were like, oh, complacency and injuries have derailed the last several teams that won 2 straight. Number one, what the hell does that have to do with this version of the Chiefs? Like, whatever happened to a 2-time back-to-back Super Bowl champion in the 80s means nothing to the Chiefs. Number two, what part of the Chiefs give any sort of indication that there is complacency at any level? There's just none. And we've seen Mahomes get just, like, it looked like his leg was pointing in 2 different directions. And a few weeks later, he's back, right? Like, so it just feels like they have been, knock on wood, because I never want players to get injured, they've been able to avoid so much of that. Yeah, if the injury bug hits anybody, it derails their season. Right. But there's no reason to think it's going to hit the Chiefs at an alarming rate because it simply doesn't work that way. So don't talk to me about complacency. Don't talk to me about injury, because those are things that I don't think you can bank on. And don't talk to me about what 2-time defending Super Bowl champions did in the 80s and 90s, because that doesn't mean a dang thing. I almost said a worse word. That doesn't mean a dang thing towards this actual Chiefs team.
Yeah, I'm going to wrap it up by saying I'm glad we talked about the Rockers today. That was really cathartic. That was really. I'm gonna go find YouTube has everything. Obviously, I'm gonna go watch some Superstars of Wrestling when I get done here.
Yeah, so go watch the old AWA matches. They're on in
Vegas,
they're on.
You said you went there.
Yeah, you used to go to those. So yeah, they're the Midnight Rockers to me, still in my heart. I've never met Sean, but I did get Marty to sign the championship belt for me. It's a really chintzy belt that the toy store had, but still signed by Marty. It was every bit as problematic. Don't meet your heroes, kids. You actually do meet your heroes, just don't meet Marty Jannetty. That's the real takeaway from this entire episode. John Gennaro is going to try and edit all of this together in a way that actually doesn't make it. John, I'm sorry. Like I'm sorry that we just absolutely. We didn't make it easy on you right there. Almost made you people word. Follow him on Twitter at Yahoo Schwab. Follow me at Jason Fitz. We will be back next week with all of the preseason hype you could possibly imagine and training camp details galore. So thanks for hanging out with us. Be sure to rate, subscribe, review, tell your friends, your family, and enemies. Tell everybody to hang out with us every single week.